nothing but love and respect. You might have some cool fans, but mine are the best. We've been through it all, went to war when duty called. Never left a man behind, we move as one is super strong. I don't want followers, that implies I'm the leader. I'm not the captain, I just gave them something they can believe in. I hold the lamp in the darkness, but they're the light that I needed to see the road that we walk in between the angels and demons. And my fans have my back. Hate us if your feelings don't like facts. And my fans will fight back. Beat you with the keyboard you've been using to write back. I guess we need each other like both sides of the battery. We the army, we the homies, we the gang, we the cavalry. We're brothers and sisters, we hold it down like we gravity. Can't nobody break the bond that made us all family.
Me and my fans, we don't care what anybody say. Middle fingers to whoever in the way, man. Me and my fans, we gon' be together to the grave. It's a game till forever and a day, man. Me and my fans, we don't even trip in the hate. We the all in our veins, man. Me and my fans,
We the hangover gang. Gang, 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 gang.
Oklahoma weather can dish out some of the worst punishment in the world. Hi everyone, I'm meteorologist Tuttle. But now you can fight back by installing Class 4 impact-resistant shingles from Ferguson Roof Systems. These shingles can withstand large hail, heavy rain, and hurricane-force winds, all while keeping your home safe and dry. And the best part? This upgrade is completely free for many homeowners. So call today to start reaping the benefits these Class 4 shingles bring, including a discount on home insurance. Only at FergusonRoofSystems.com.
Hey there everyone, Meteorologist Tuttle back with you. It is about 9:38 here on our Thursday evening. Another live weather update for you to talk about the weather coming up here for the short term, and also a sneak peek into next week to see if it's really Armageddon. So you've come to the right place. We're going to let you know if we're all going to make it or not. We're going to keep doing these updates here as we get closer to this supposed huge, massive, life-changing historical event. I'll let you know if there's any truth to any of it. So thanks for liking, sharing, commenting, suggesting, supporting me, hitting the like button, telling your friends and family about AT's weather, all that jazz. So I appreciate that. Okay, so tell you what, we've got, looks like everybody's in the house. So I see Activate a Stars party. It's already going on Facebook, so thank you for sending the stars. Appreciate you. Let's get on to, what's the first thing I want to show you? Well, temperatures outside aren't as bad. They're about 54 degrees. We warmed up a little bit today. It wasn't by much. We hit the low 60s out there. Northwest winds, though, this is the big story. Finally coming down to less than 10 miles per hour. How about that? A gust less than 10. I'll take it. It has been ridiculous on the winds. Okay, well, we had winds elsewhere over the state, and today still breezy, especially out in western Oklahoma. Wind gusts up around 60 plus in some areas. Again, that is a severe thunderstorm type criteria of wind gusts, which does mean some minor damage will occur with that. Otherwise, 30s out to the east. Now, I will say this, and I'll show this in the other maps here, but again, all in this area, this is high fire danger, extreme fire danger territory. Doesn't take much to get a blaze, get out of control, especially those winds and the dry conditions. Speaking of which, currently the winds out there across the state have calmed down a little bit more over central Oklahoma. They're still pretty gusty up there in northeast, gust up around 20 in and around the Tulsa area. So that is where the strongest winds are currently. Now, for the remainder of tonight through tomorrow, again, winds are calming down now, but they're still going to stay in the morning hours, a little gusty, a little breezy for the first part of our Friday. Then they'll start to calm down a bit as we head into the afternoon. So still another windy day expected, but not nearly as windy as today was overall. Now, temperatures outside, you can see how they're starting to cool. It almost looks like they're funneling, right? Outline the little funnel here of where they're kind of coming on in. And really, this is all terrain-induced. So it's anywhere you get low-lying areas, valleys, rivers, all that kind of stuff. It's where you get your coldest temperatures that will kind of settle. So there's always some favorite areas across the state. You might know if you live in one of those favorite areas because your temperatures get a lot colder than other people surrounding you. So keep that in mind. That'll be a big factor as we head into tomorrow morning's temperatures and also Saturday morning. Now, if you look at dew point temperatures into the teens and 20s and even single digits out there, that's really dry air. So it's a raw measured moisture in the atmosphere. For these numbers, what you really need to take home is if the dew point's in the 50s, it feels kind of a little, moist out there. Not bad, actually pretty kind of pleasant. You get dew points in the 60s and higher, that's when it feels disgusting. And then what's in the bone dry single digits or below zero, that's where everything cracks and just falls apart. When you factor in the temperature and you combine the two, the humidity is the formula, and that is into the 20% range. So you might have more of a correlation with that number. You can see how the humidity values into the teens out west. Again, a lot of dry air in place across Oklahoma, so do me a favor, and do your part not to burn anything. Well, where is that moisture going to be? Well, how about the Gulf of Mexico? Because right now we're in the teens, 20s, and single digits all the way up through Saturday. And then look what happens. We head into Saturday night and Sunday. We finally get a little bit of resemblance of moisture trying to work back into Oklahoma in the eastern half, but it won't be enough to notice. You're going to have a great weekend as far as the weather is concerned, really, overall. Now, with the, let's look at the winds here. With that change in the dew point map, it does bring to Facebook. We'll see. All right, so let's take a look here. Something's going on, man, with my system. This is a new thing that just is not happy. But anyway, let's see. Here is Saturday morning, and look at these winds. Very light and variable to 5 knots. So what that tells you is that we are in store for a very cold morning. So you get clear skies and light winds, temperatures really bottom out. All right, so now we're going to go with a stronger south wind for Saturday afternoon. So that respite was very short-lived. Calm down again a little bit on Sunday. Do we at all calm down? No, we don't. On Saturday night, we calm down. So after dusk, but then they pick right back up. So it's like a brief couple of hours, and then it's back to windy conditions for Sunday. So it will be a nice weekend with the humidity values, but of course, unfortunately, it's going to be a little on the breezy side. These are knots, but it's going to be basically 25 gusts to 30 miles per hour again on late Saturday and into Sunday. All right. Okay, so now you know it's going to be windy and it's going to get cold. Usually look at temperatures, by the way. Let me bottom it out here for you. So we'll go to 7 o'clock. By the way, what about tomorrow morning? Do we have tomorrow morning? Did this show me this? It did. Okay. So this is for later tonight and tomorrow morning. We're going to have a lot of 30s out there across the state and some 40s. Where you see these little blue areas, that's the low-lying valleys I'm talking about, where the model tries to pick up on that. So, yes, that means tonight there's going to be a light freeze for some folks. Otherwise, lots of 30s out there, and even out west toward the Panhandle into Texas and Oklahoma. All right, now let's go into Saturday morning. So what do we have here? Ooh, a lot more blue on the map. That's some hard freeze. This is some new data just came in. 22 degrees. Oh, my goodness. Here, just north of Canadian County, Kingfisher area, all that region on up north toward Enid, Ponca City, lots of 20s thrown in here. Even up toward Bartlesville, north of you guys up into Kansas. So a good hard freeze for some of you. And again, this isn't anything new. We've been talking about a freeze for a while. It's just as we get closer, the models have a better idea of how low it'll go. Even down here in the valleys, southwest of Oklahoma City, say south of Blanchard and Newcastle, Chickasha area. Again, there's some 20s showing in there. So make sure you protect those plants. Okay, so that's the big highlights as far as the cold goes. Now let's talk, and the wind. So now let's talk about the severe weather. All right, so here's the Storm Prediction Center. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, slight. All right, so let me tell you something here on behind the scenes. If they draw something, day 3, 4, 5 out, whatever it may be. This is an 8-day panel, right? Just because they draw it doesn't mean they're extremely confident that something huge is going to happen and they better put it on the map today. That is not how that works. That is not a confidence thing. Their goal is to find any semblance that there could be some severe weather. And there's enough of an indicator there might be. They circle it and they put an indicator on it. So people interpret this really poorly, and then therefore they hype it up and preach Armageddon as a result. It's foolish. So just to know that that's what that means, and a lot of times this may not verify that well, and they'll have to redraw it. In other words, this little guy here, it may get moved, around here, for example. It may be on the next day. Same deal. Maybe it'll get shoved down here. It's just an early guess at the general location where there'll probably be some thunderstorms and probably even some severe. We can get the right ingredients. That's all this is. Otherwise, you can see the rest of these typically say probability too low, meaning there's just not enough in there to even warrant a guess that there's going to be something that happens. So kind of when you see these, take them grain of salt. It's just a heads up. There could be something later on. And then as you get into the 1, 2, and 3 day window, that's when you pay attention. You go, okay, so this is where we start to get us to some details. So let's take a look at those details tonight, shall we? We'll look at the European data that came in earlier today. Big storm system up across the northeast. Ridge builds in across the west. Shifts eastward as we head into Sunday. And then out to the northwest comes our next storm system. We'll stop it on Monday evening, and we're going to talk about it. So it's got the upper low way out here in the Pacific Northwest. That puts a southwesterly jet stream flow here across the Four Corners area into the Central Plains. And a lot of this energy, which represents all the colors you see on the map, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at this, is all anchored up here in this direction, right? Nowhere near Oklahoma. So we don't have a whole lot of lift in the upper levels with this system yet for Monday. All right, let's go on into Tuesday. What happens there? Let's get this on by. There's Tuesday afternoon and evening. All right, the low has moved now farther south to the Four Corners region. We are still in that southwesterly flow aloft. But once again, most of the energy is now getting more compacted and confined, but still in this same general zone. So we, again, don't have a whole lot of lift, not a lot of what they call brute forcing synoptically. So you have to depend upon a lot of moisture, overall heating of the atmosphere, and some subtle lift that we have to try to trigger stuff as long as the cap isn't too strong. All right, so we'll talk about that here in a moment. Now, on Wednesday, again, this is all timing. This is an operational, deterministic run, so it's not an ensemble or a blend of different different members. It's just the best member that they think the model has. It's chosen as the one, and we go with it. All right, so here's a look at Wednesday evening. The upper level low is now over Kansas. Now, if you look here, all the energy is now in the eastern parts of Oklahoma, and that means that the timing is wrong. It came in too early. It blew through the Oklahoma City metro by noon. That doesn't do anything for us unless we were to see severe weather break out at 11 a.m. So that means that any storms in this particular setup for this day and Wednesday is going to have to be east of this axis. All right. Now, the other thing you're going to have in here is moisture. If you don't have the deeper moisture, this is wasted as far as like a big severe weather event. So we shall see if that happens by looking at the dew point map here in a second. But that moves on out. Things quiet down. Looks like another little system will come in here for... This is on Sunday. So this by Sunday the 17th in the afternoon. This one's coming in at the right time. We'll see if there's enough moisture with it. But this one could actually be more of a severe weather maker than that first one that's sitting around for 2.5 days, right? All right, so let's get into the details here. Now, on the dew point map, this is looking at the European data. It's been the most consistent. This is Monday afternoon, and it does have some dew points right here in Oklahoma City around 61 degrees. So, hey, that's good. You need dew points in the low 60s for severe storm development and also tornadoes, assuming that the air is deep. In other words, the depth of this more moist air mass isn't all mixed out and dispersed over a large area. Instead, it's nice and deep in the column. We can find that out by doing a forecast sounding. Where we have dew points in the 60s and 70s, it's still way down south in Texas along the Gulf Coast. So this is day one of this 3-day event set up with the upper level low. So let's click a sounding, point forecast sounding over Oklahoma City. All right, so let's take a look at the data. What does it say? All right, well, this is a profile that's starved of moisture. That's for one. And how you can tell about that, you see this LCL. This is a lifting condensation level, and it's way up over a kilometer. All right, so that's a negative factor for tornado genesis. The cloud bases are really high. Now, we do have a lot of good shear in the lower levels, but a lot of this shear is pretty linear. There's not a lot of turning in the first kilometer for sure, and then now there's some decent turning by the third kilometer in the atmosphere. It's okay. It's marginal. It's not exactly super great if you want tornadoes, but it might just do the deal. But so that's a factor that can go kind of either way. It does have significant hail in the analogs, which means a similar setup has produced hail as big as 2.5 inches in diameter, but the ship model says only 1.1, which goes against having large hail. The storm slinky is basically linear, which tells you nothing's going to happen. Classic supercell structure has some problems in its development. It's okay. I've seen much better. And the tornado strength on this is barely registering in the EF 0 to 1 category. Possible hazard type, though, of none. In other words, no severe, no tornado. And it's just because this moisture is too mixed out here, and there's a cap, pretty strong cap in the atmosphere. It's this little dink you see here, the red little dot that comes out here, this little red line. That just means a strong cap is in place. So we're not getting into the 80s to break it. We'll be in the 70s and might even, I don't know. It's just, right now, it doesn't look all that great. Okay, so this is on Monday afternoon and evening here in central Oklahoma. This, just so you know, is one of the most aggressive models, which means the other models don't even have this much moisture. The profile isn't even this good looking, which means it's even worse if you want severe weather. So it is what it is. Okay, now remember, I will tell you this, on Saturday, we'll have all the short-term models in by that point in time that samples the atmosphere better when it comes to severe weather, and we're going to know more of those details. But for right now, for a global model, European, you can't be beat when you're looking at these type of indices at this point in time in the game. So, what do we do going from here? Well, let's take a look here at some detailed output data. Oh, by the way, just to show you what happens long term. So this is little moisture that comes in here for Monday, Tuesday, into Wednesday. So here's Tuesday afternoon, by the way, and it kind of shows you how the moisture axis is kind of like this in this region, right? So the tongue goes like this. It's actually east. So it's far eastern Oklahoma and Arkansas. So really, for day 2 of this event, Tuesday, the better instability and the better moisture is going to be probably eastern Texas and Louisiana and into Arkansas versus Oklahoma. Our dew point here in Oklahoma City is 51. That's pretty anemic for storms already. And that was after the day before, which we really didn't have much to work with. So not looking so good for us. All right, let's go to Wednesday afternoon, see what happens. Oh, look what happened. Everything shifted even more to the east. So now all the action's in eastern Arkansas and then points forward from there. Now what happens after this event moves by? Let's take a look. This is the ensemble look, and it shuts the whole Gulf down. Doesn't really do anything. It's got the whole nation in the 20s for dew point values and 30s. So this is bone dry for this time of the year. So it's a crazy pattern to be in. This goes all up through April 22nd. So the caveat here would be, and the ensembles may not pick up on this. Remember that little system coming on Sunday? There's a chance that some of us can sneak in here on Sunday and produce us some storms. But that's Sunday the 17th. Again, that's a long ways away for Easter weekend. All right, so let's take a look at the forecast for precipitation and how things may or may not play out as we go through time. All right, so let's go to Monday afternoon, 4 o'clock. So this is what happens. The models don't produce much here in Oklahoma City. Remember I showed you the parameters there, and they weren't looking all that great. Whenever you look here in eastern Oklahoma, it fires off some storms around Tulsa. So, hey, you live in Tulsa and you're going, whoa, what does that mean for us? Is it time for us to panic? I've had a lot of you already panicking. I've had a lot of you giving me some anxiety. Don't do it, not yet. Let's just see what the model looks like first. So, here's a look at what Tulsa looks like, and the analogs show in this case, because you got a little bit more moisture to work with. Therefore, it likes a better shot of you seeing some larger hail. 2 inches, 3 inches. That's some big hail. The ship model, 1.7, is pretty close to 2, so I'll go with that. So I'll go for big hail in eastern Oklahoma for some of these storms that manage to hold together. But here's the problem again. Your moisture's ankle deep and it mixes out right in here. So what happens? That cloud base goes way up here. Now, shear's pretty decent. If we just had the shear to go off of and that was the only thing, I could see a tornado or two out of this. But we have this going against us, the dry air that's there, the overall lowest level storm relative velocity's not quite there. It's at 119 meters squared per second squared. You really need about 200. So that's a negative factor. So like I'm saying, it's not exactly clean for Tulsa if you want tornadoes. It's definitely a hail producer. Could you get a tornado on this? Yeah, probably in and around, wherever the storms develop. But they're quick moving. This is 7 o'clock and they're already out. So with a 3-hour window, you'll see a few storms in eastern Oklahoma, and then they're quickly off into Arkansas. So that's it. That's the big event for Oklahoma. Well, 90% of us were dry, so that doesn't really do us any good for rain. All right, let's go to Tuesday. And Tuesday we'll go to 7 o'clock. So here's 4. So here's 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And it does have a little better indication of maybe what we call a string of pearls, which means a line of thunderstorms that try to build supercells in nature, isolated from one another. Better potential maybe for some tornadoes, you think? Well, let's take a look at the forecast sounding. That's what you got to do. And remember, early in the event, so let's just pick here in southeastern Oklahoma. Let's see what we got here. Oh, got another problem. Good hail. Severe thunderstorm hazard. Shear's decent on the turning with height, but the speeds are quite a bit weak up here. Matter of fact, they're so weak, they go to the left of this vertical line here for the classic supercell structure, which means these storms have a hard time keeping their updrafts sustained, and they will fall apart. They'll do too many cycles, storm cycling, which at any time a storm is cycling, it can't produce a tornado. So it limits tornado production. Also, the lifting condensation level is way up high again, too high for tornadoes, and the shear at the lowest levels is too low. So again, another negative factor for tornado genesis, and this is on Tuesday. So what happens at 7 o'clock? Well, do things get any better as this storm cluster moves here into southeast Oklahoma? Let's take a look. Shear's even worse. So there's a little better turning at the lowest levels. Of course, that later in the day, the LCLs do come down, but you know what? Marginal severe is what the forecast sounding calls for, so it's just not that impressive for an environment for us. Okay, well, that was Monday, that was Tuesday. Are you still scared in your boots after seeing that? I hope not, because my goal here is to talk you off the ledge. Here's Wednesday, 4 o'clock. Looks like some shower storms try to get going in far eastern Oklahoma, east of Tulsa, Muskogee, down east of McAllister, and by 7, if there was any, didn't even last long. They're already gone out of the state. So we're not getting much action in Oklahoma from this event, supposed event. Then who is getting the action? Let's take a look, because it's not going to be us. All right, let's go through time. All right, we'll start to the first. Here is Monday evening. So there's those storms firing off in northeast Oklahoma. Look how they fall apart. Don't last long. Here's 7 o'clock and only one survived. Now that one, if there's just one, it's a supercell. You got to watch it. It could produce a tornado along its way off and on. Given if everything else can come together just right. Remember, we looked at some forecast soundings and it didn't look all that great. I'll take a look at this environment out ahead of it and see if it got a little bit better. And it did get a little bit better. It's got a little bit better moisture, a little better low-level helicity. Numbers are higher, above 200. A little bit of a weak cap. That's okay. Tornado index actually went up here for the category of a strength of a tornado. It's now a little messy, but it's better than what it was in Oklahoma. Possible hazard type, marginal tornado. So again, you have to watch a couple of these storms. They probably exit the state into Arkansas, Missouri, somewhere in this region where they get better instability, better moisture, etc. That's on Monday evening. All right, you have another little cluster down here in eastern Texas. That one supercell up here dies out fast, so it usually means it runs into a cap. Down here in the eastern Texas and northern Louisiana, a little cluster of storms there that moves out, and that's it. So that's the first output of the first wave on Monday. All right, let's go to Tuesday. So Tuesday, there's a few of those shower storms that try to get going here in Oklahoma. Models do favor them to kind of at least work into kind of a squall line type approach to them as they move into through North Texas, northeastern, southern, southeastern Texas through Tuesday afternoon, and that presses on into Arkansas and points eastern from there. Now, when you have this line like this in the model data, just know that a lot of times is what we call a linear convective system. It's kind of like a squall line. You can get the QLCS type tornadoes out ahead of this. Sometimes you get embedded supercells, these little hybrid cells. So it can be kind of a messy cluster. And sometimes it can be just a marginal event. And the forecast sounding for this out ahead of that line, it calls it a marginal severe thunderstorm event. Winds are too weak here at the lowest 4 to 6 kilometers, and there's not enough turning with height. The shear is too linear, so it's just a squall line. A typical springtime line of storms. We've seen a few of them here already. All right, well, let's go to the next huge, massive day. So here's Wednesday. Now this looks like it's probably going to be the best day of the three, and it's nowhere near Oklahoma. It's all over Arkansas. I'll just do 1 point forecast sounding here, and yep, this is where I would say, okay, better shot at seeing a tornado, a few tornadoes at that, on Wednesday in Arkansas and other areas, just because the shear is much stronger, a little bit better turning with height at the lowest levels, and I think those are like 40 to 50 knots. Yeah, very strong winds. That really pumps the hodograph. So EF 1 to 2 strength tornadoes, possibly maybe EF 3. So kind of an idea then the model data that is where your volatile day will likely be, and that's from Missouri through Arkansas into Louisiana and not in Oklahoma. All right, did that little system that comes in on Sunday, did it do anything? Let's take a look here. Oh, it's just outside this forecast period. I'll do a forecast sounding just in the morning, see what it looks like. Oh, bone dry. Oof, way dry. Something's going to happen dramatically to get enough moisture in here to make something happen. 62 over 42. So that system could be wasted as well. And when I say wasted, it means if all the other ingredients aren't there, I'm telling you, it's not a big deal overall compared to what we would normally be able to see. Now, if we do take a look at a model blend, you can see where most of the rain falls within this, and it's missing some of those little showers or thunderstorms we have in far eastern Oklahoma. It's blending it all together and smoothing it out, and the bulk of it all has it to the east, from eastern Texas, Louisiana, onward up to the north and east. Out of that for all of next week combined, kind of gives you an idea that most of the stuff is off east of us. Temperatures over the next few days. We are going to get warm. My goodness, you see this, 87 on Sunday. That's almost 90 degrees here in Oklahoma City. Same thing for Tuesday. Goodness. All right, lows getting up to the 60s. Oh, did I just miss something important? If you missed the beginning of this broadcast, this is what we talked about. So there'll likely be a light freeze here in and around the Oklahoma City area. You know, this could be like the official airport temperature, for example. So you're going to need to protect your sensitive vegetation and plants. Light winds, clear skies. All right, so after that, we do dip a little bit back into the 40s briefly. Otherwise, overnight lows finally kind of getting out of the 30-degree range. And then daytime highs getting to the 60s and 70s. And then there's Sunday. Just, that's not enough heat. And with that anemic moisture, they may not get any severe weather that day either for Easter weekend. So that'd be good news. That's still a long ways off, though. I mean, a lot can change between now and then in the world of weather when you're in a fast, active springtime environment. I'm raining on DP's parade with no historic tornado event next week. I detest my community that starts this crap 8 days out. I detest them with the passion of 1,000 suns. It gets under my skin like you wouldn't believe. So I have to not pay attention, because just if I hear just a whiff, one or two, it's enough to drive me crazy. So imagine me hearing all of them. I might go insane. Hey, if you love that though, if you're the person that sees the car wreck and you have to stop and just look, then that's for you. Honestly, and most of us are wired that way to some degree. But, you know, if you've got a problem, though, it's where you get a lot of anxiety, storm anxiety, you got to turn that stuff off. Sorry, that's the only way you're going to get through that. You turn that off, turn me on, and you'll be fine. Because I'm going to walk you through it just like this. It's all science. There's no wish casting. There's no hope for destruction. There's no, you know, I can't wait. You know, did you see what's going to happen? Ooh, did you see the such and such model? Did you see this? And get all excited and giddy. You're not going to find that here. I'm like the old man, get off my lawn. I'm just not into that stuff. Maybe back in the day I was, when I was a young lad, but now I'm just cranky. Samuel on YouTube. I guess so, man. I guess so. Thanks for checking in, you guys, on YouTube. All right, Facebook, by the way. Candy. Amber. Which one was that? Was that here in town or was that in Tulsa? It looked like... Yeah, not much is happening in Oklahoma City. Monday's our best day to see any storms in Oklahoma City, unless something dramatically changes. That was a long paragraph. I just read it from John. That was good advice. So kind of to tie into what John was saying, remember, tornadoes are like a needle in a haystack. And Oklahoma is a huge haystack. And you can go your entire life and never see one live here, just so you know. The only way you would see one is if you turn on the TV and helicopters got it, or you turn on the internet and somebody uploaded a video of it, or just out there storm chasing it. Alicia, so why are these other weathermen telling us to clean out our storm shelters this weekend? Because it's ratings. All right, so listen, I got to tell you something. This is where you're going to have to get serious for a second. Now remember, I worked in TV news for 12 years, so no one's going to know the game better than me, because I was in the game, and I was at the top of the game for a long time, and so I knew how the game was played, and I didn't like it. But you know how it is. You got to say yes to collect a paycheck, and then at some point, when you've had enough and you got things that can come your way, you take advantage of it to get out of that situation. So that's what I did. And I got out of it and never looked back. But while I was there, just so you know, when I showed you that long range forecast of how the entire country shut down, it's just dew points in the dry air, you can't get severe weather, you can't get storms. Well, in markets like Oklahoma City, and to a degree Tulsa, but not as bad, but especially here in Oklahoma City, it's overhyped drama because you guys will tune in to the car wreck scene I talked about earlier. Okay, that pumps up the rating numbers, the Nielsen values on the market, meter markets. And those numbers go up, and it shows how many viewers are watching. And they break it down to age group and all that kind of stuff. So, if they can hype up an event 6, 7, 8 days away and build on that fear, build on that anxiety, you're going to want to tune in to see if it's going to change or if it's going to get worse. And so they're playing on your inability to control yourself, which means turning off that source of fear driving hysteria. Why? Because partially you're built that way, and 2, because you can't help it, and 3, maybe in part of you just likes it. There are thrill seekers out there. Maybe that's your version of thrill seeking. There's a number of ways that can go. Point is, though, they know there's enough people that will want that, and so they give it to you. And so they're going to keep giving it to you and watch those numbers go up, and they're going to capitalize on it. And when they see the long-term forecast, and they go, oh, this is it? We're not going to have anything for maybe the most of April? What are we going to do? We need to get the revenue in here for the station. We got to build up, because this is where we can really pad those numbers and sell for advertising and say, hey, look how many eyeballs we had, and they're going to use these storm events to do it. So this is the back end. This is where the weather guys earn their money. You got to earn your keep somehow, right? So that's the nature of the business model, like it or not. When you sign a deal with the devil, you got to play by the devil's terms. So there's no terms here, baby. I'm free man. No one says yes but me to me. I'm a yes man to myself. And if I say no, then I say no. But yeah, so that's kind of how that goes in the background, just so you know in that industry how that works, which is why you hear all the craziness. Now, that's on the TV side, which has been that way for a while. Some markets are worse than others. Oklahoma City is one of the worst, believe it or not. Some other markets, tornado? What? It's weather. Who cares about that? Seriously, there are some markets like that. Hard to believe, but it does happen. All right, and then you've got the internet. Oh, good grief. That's a whole nother, I could spend 20 minutes on that. So on that deal, you have a lot of weather weenies. A lot of them. They just love weather. I get it. It's fine to love weather. It's okay. But now they have access to a lot of the stuff that we do as meteorologists use, but they don't quite understand how to use it or how to interpret it because they didn't have all the school and the training and the education, blah, blah, blah. So they just see a model and they go nuts with it. And then their friends are saying something about it. Now they're going to say something about it. And they're going to, hype up a snowstorm blizzard event 384 hours out. Which is like 14 days or something away. And they're going to post it on there for all the likes and views and clout they can get on the internet. And so they're internet clout chasers, but they're using weather to do it. And you guys fall for it because then you go, oh! And then you share it and you like it. And then your friends share it. And everybody's panicking or everybody's excited or whatever. Same idea as the car wreck phenomenon. They can't help themselves. You can't help yourself. Whatever. And a lot of the times that stuff comes from people that aren't even meteorologists. So there's one guy that does this. He's very successful on YouTube, and he does a lot of this kind of weather stuff, and he's not a meteorologist either. He's just a con man who's learned how to con a large amount of people and does a very good job at it, and he's making a lot of money. So good for him for feeding his family, but he's a fraud. So I'm not going to say who it is. But there's a lot of those out there. And there's some of those in TV too. And that's something you have to deal with. I always did in the industry. I just had to let it go. I looked at it as there's somebody successful at putting food on the table for their family. Who am I to, whatever. I just focus on me, do the best job I can do, let the chips fall where they may. And so I had to learn that lesson decades ago. Because when I first got into TV and I realized what was in TV, I was like, you guys aren't even qualified to be here. So I was like, oh, that was a tough pill to swallow. Then, I was reminded it's television. You're not into some science academia specific work area. So anyway, it's all a bunch of flash and gimmicks and dazzle. What else can I say? Professor Tuttle. Thanks, Jennifer. At some point, I may always do some type of class or whatever. I've been offered before, my buddy Steve Caron over at Rose State. Just helping them out and teaching weather classes. It would be fun. It's just right now it's not where my path is taking me, but it's always on the table at some point. as you never know what tomorrow's going to bring, right? So I always keep my options open, doors open. Never know when one's going to close and one's going to open. And I never say no to an opportunity because you never know what's going to happen with that opportunity. It may seem benign at first, or it may just seem like, I don't know. You know, you have, I don't know, what's going to come of that? You don't know. That's the problem. You never do know. And so I'll give you one small example of that. So I was on a reality TV show called Say Yes to the Dress. I was with in another relationship, and that one didn't work out. It was actually kind of on the rocks a little bit when we were approached to do the show. But I said, you know what? You never know, right? We could repair the relationship, and either it's going to go better or it's going to end. You know, you're somewhere. You're at the fork. It's one way or the other. So we went ahead and did the show, and of course, the relationship didn't go well. It ended. But the show aired in repeats, and it still does to this day, forever, because it's one of the most popular shows. I wonder why. So that's fine. I mean, I thought, maybe I'll get a few apps or users or followers from it or whatever, or just add it to my list of things I've done that was just fun and interesting and goofy and call it. Because again, like I said, you really don't know what's ever going to happen at the end of that. But what I did not foresee was getting a wife out of that deal, because that's the strangest way to do so. So Jody, she was competing in her first bodybuilding bikini competition. And so she was training for that, and her daughter was in college and was studying, and she loved that show, so she had it on. And she goes, "Hey, Mom, come check out this jacked couple on Say Yes to the Dress." So she goes and checks it out, and she goes, "Ooh, he's cute." And of course, she's like, "Mom, he's on a show about getting married. He's probably married." And she's like, "I'm going to go look him up." So she looked me up, and by then, of course, this has been like who knows how many repeats later. She's like, "Nope, single. There's nothing on the internet that says he's with anybody." And then she looked up the other person, nothing on there for me. She's like, "I'm going to send him, go interact." So interacted, social media, and then we ended up chatting, and then had some commonalities and started talking. And she was in Canada, and I'm here in Oklahoma, and so I'm not thinking much about any of this, right? And at first, I'm like, I don't even know if this is even a chick. This could be a dude. I could be getting catfished. So, I'm a little tentative on what I want to say and how I want to say it. And I was like, I think 3 weeks after this back and forth stuff, I was like, before this gets anywhere further and we start getting a little more serious, I said, I'll just throw it out there. I said, hey, you want to ever come to Oklahoma and visit? I'll show you around. No strings attached. We'll just check it out as friends, whatever, and you can go back. And to my surprise, Jody said, okay. So I was like, oh, you're just a really brave dude. Or this might actually be a real female. So we ended up, picked her over the airport, and she's all nervous, and it was her. And I was like, hey, you actually exist. All right, let's see where this goes. And so we hit it off, had a good time. And then fast forward 3 years later of long distance dating, we got married, and here we are. So that's an example of an opportunity that came my way that I could have said no to because conditions at the current time weren't exactly favorable. And if you're always trying to wait for the perfect time or the perfect set of circumstances, you might miss an opportunity that you have no idea is coming short term or long term. So that's my example of what happens when I decide to say yes over something I could have easily said no over because of the way things are going at the time. And so obviously I'm glad I said yes, but to a different dress. And it worked out. So anyways, there's a little love story. Let's see, Candy, how long have you been married now? So just over a year. We actually got married. I had a bucket list of Banff, Oklahoma. In Canada. Have you ever seen it? It's like a postcard. It's like too pretty to be true. It can't be true. It's too perfect. I was like, let's go there. Let's get married. And so of course she was on board because she loves that area. And unfortunately COVID happened, and it really screwed everything up. And then we were at a point where we didn't get to see each other anymore because they were shutting down the borders. They were making it hard to get across for either one of us. Every time she would visit, she'd go back. She'd have to quarantine for 14 days. So she was starting to go insane. And so it was really taking a toll on the relationship. And I said, screw all this. I said, let's just go get married. So we went to Vegas, and we went to the little white chapel, and we had Elvis himself do the honors. And we had a great time. It was a fun wedding. And so we've been married now for just a little over a year. So that's where I was gone. I was gone there for a week we had some storms in Oklahoma that one Monday. I was out celebrating for our anniversary, so that's kind of how that happened. So there she is. She's typing in there as we speak. So we had a spring birthday, a spring wedding. So there you go. So there's another extension to that story. Chris Evans, what about East North Texas? Yes, you have a better shot at seeing storms than we do here in Oklahoma, but you also have the cap to worry about, and it's just not looking all that great. So just so you know. I will do lives on Friday noon and evening. I don't know. We'll see. I don't know. I don't know. We'll see how Friday goes. But I'll do a live on Friday, either the noon or the evening, probably. And then on Saturday, I'm definitely gonna do a live on Saturday because that's really the first day in which I'm gonna know for sure more details than what we've currently can configure with the global model. We'll start getting the mesoscale stuff, and we're going to get to see how strong that cap is, the winds, and a lot of other things. So that's when that window really starts to open up. And then on Sunday, of course, we'll do a live. I'll do a blog too on Sunday. And then the lives on Sunday will definitely be, because that'll be 24 hours out. So everything there is to know is known, usually by 24 hours out. The only thing at that point, the next day, depending on how the situation evolves, what kind of pattern you're in, and what you're looking for at the surface, sometimes you kind of fine-tune things on a short-term forecast type deal where you're looking at boundary interactions, position of a meso low, a dry line, a triple point. How do the models handle the return of moisture for the dew points? Is it a little bit more to the west? Is it a little bit more to the east? So do you shift your storm initiation zone, a couple of counties over one way or the other? So that sometimes that kind of stuff can happen on the day of, if it's a day where those type of things are still evolving. But if it's pretty static, in other words, pretty stable pattern, so that on Sunday doesn't like much of anything could change, well, then it's pretty locked in. So that's kind of how that goes. So I like to talk about tornadoes about 48 hours out. But I'm getting serious about it with better forecasting ability as you get closer and closer within that window. Beyond 48 hours out, typically too much can change. So if you're going to go and promise, let's say, for example, I'm 4 days out or 3 days out, and I say there'll be tornadoes in eastern half of Oklahoma. Watch out. Well, all of a sudden we're 24 hours out, and the model's busted, and everything is now west. And so now I come out and tell you, well, all of western half of Oklahoma is going to watch out for tornadoes. You'll be like, well, didn't you just tell me the day before that you said the eastern half, and now you're saying the western half? That's a pretty huge deviation. And I could say, oh, well, the storm slowed down. In reality, you screwed up because you wrote a check your butt couldn't cash. Said it the nice way. Because you did it too early. You try to do what the science won't allow. And now you got to eat it. You got to eat crow. So that's why I try to keep that stuff within that window, because that's where your best accuracy is going to be. And honestly, if you can't prepare for a tornado 48 hours out, you're going to need more help than what I can give you. That's an eternity to be ready, to have your storm shelter cleared out, to have your plans, backups and what to do, where to go, who you're going to be with, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, I mean, come on. Put it in your Google Calendar if you have to. Where you're going to be, what you're going to do. So there you go. All right, well, I got to get out of here. It is 10:20, so it's time for me to vamoose. But thanks, guys, for watching tonight, and hope you learned a lot. Hope you understood some of the differences that can happen in storm environments that can make or break an event, and why it's always too early to get all worked up and excited this far out. Just wait till we get a little bit closer, and then we'll start to get down to the details. So there you go. Thanks for watching, and thanks again for a lot of you folks that tuned in last night for the Ferguson Roof Systems interview. That was a lot of fun. I learned a lot about roofing, so hopefully a lot of you guys did too. So I think that was helpful for everybody. All right, guys, have a good night. Sleep well. Take care. See you later.